Mr. Bluska. Here. Mr. Brooks.
Here.
Ms. Gilbert.
Present.
Mr. Merritt.
Here.
Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Also in attendance tonight is Mayor Tony George, Controller Darren Snyder, Administrator Greg Baruch, Deputy Administrator / City Attorney Jim Henry, Deputy Fire Chief Alan Clappett, Director of Operations Butch Brody, Finance Director Brett Kittredge, Police Commander John Curham, Assistant City Clerk Catherine Payne, and Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanford. Good evening. Before we begin with the formal business at hand, there is one announcement. Mr. Henry?
There's one housekeeping issue I just wanted to address before the meeting starts tonight. The amended budget, which is being considered by council tonight, is the same amended budget which was the subject of Tuesday's budget hearing. That is, it's the budget requesting a $25 million increase.
Okay, does anyone from the public wish to comment on legislation pending before council tonight?
On the budget?
Well,
You go first.
Hi, thank you. First, since this is my first council meeting this year, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Snyder, Mayor George, Ms. Gilbert, Mr. Belushko, and my councilman, Tony Brooks, and also say hello to my friends and the many familiar faces in the room.
call your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carl Romanelli. I'm here to discuss briefly 3 issues that can likely save and/or make the city money. The first one that I want to talk about, though it may be too late for this year because I know it's crunch time, but the George administration will be the 3rd administration this suggestion has been brought to. There has been no goodwill or no effort on the part of council or anyone in the administration to work toward this proposal. But I will reiterate it, it's been proposed by myself and by Mr. Ambrose Maletsky. Wilkes-Barre City as a home rule community does not have the ability to institute new taxes without first going through the state. However, as a home rule community, we have a right to institute fees. Since we have so many properties in the city of Wilkes-Barre that are absolutely tax-free because they are owned by a college, a church, a nonprofit, or Blue Cross, combined with KOZ and landlords, real estate companies that own many properties, there isn't always the tax revenue that is needed to run a city that provides the fine services that Wilkes-Barre does. I propose that the city do a study using the resources at both of the colleges to see if eliminating the property tax for residents completely is feasible and replace that with a per building fee. When a per building fee is paid, government entities, nonprofits, churches, every building that occupies a piece of valuable city land will be subject to the fee based on the size of the property in question and the type of property. A fee percentage can be suggested. This is a method that will surely bring relief to the average taxpayer and run the city from the deep pockets who have gotten a free ride for far too long within Wilkes-Barre. The second issue I'd like to address, I've also brought up for 11 years now. As you know, with no budget out of Harrisburg yet, it's time that we start talking to legislators about legislation that will actually help us. We have to stop just rubbing elbows at the cocktail parties and start demanding that the state provide the help that the city needs. And one area that would help greatly, as we've demonstrated, is if the state enacted its own single-payer health care. Not only would it be the most significant anti-poverty legislation in the history of Pennsylvania, but as was shown about 7 or 8 years ago, the economic impact study done demonstrates that Wilkes-Barre would save 50 to 60% of what it's currently spending on healthcare premiums, not including what you're spending for your obligations on retirees. Finally, I want to say that in order to address crime and to allocate the resources properly, this city should follow suit with other cities around the state, like Pittsburgh, like Philadelphia, as Harrisburg is voting on in the coming month, and decriminalize cannabis now, so that summary offenses can be used as a revenue system, and the courts and the police officers' time aren't wasted with this nonsense, and they could focus on crack, cocaine, meth, heroin, prescription drugs, and all of the things that are causing the harm to our community, to the citizens of this community, and its bankrolling cartels. It's silly to see the police department waste its valuable resources on a battle which can't be won while cannabis continues to be thrown into this category. Let's free up that time. Let's start having a real discussion as a community with some truth and some direction towards solving problems. There is not one problem that faces us that is not...
Mr. Romanelli, we need to focus on the budget. I know you've gone off a little bit.
Right, well, because it's so expensive to fund the police force, and because every time those men and women's benefits are up for contract, there's a public outcry against them, and it's really not fair. I think we could work together and we could make this a better city. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislation.
Okay. Jim Burton, 58 Taft Street, Wilkes-Barre. Okay. About this 20, okay, now it's down to 20 mils or whatever. Okay. The mayor's saying it's only $12 a month, 145 for an $80,000 house. Okay, we have senior citizens in the city. Okay, now you're talking $12 a month. Okay, it's only a couple pennies he's saying. Well, on a prescription. Now, myself, I'm going to use myself as an example. I take 9 to 12 pills a day. I take 2 injections of insulin a day, one injection, 1 a week. Okay, and that averages out to, the one is $35 a week that I take. Another one comes out to, and my other prescriptions run me $4 prescription, and the other ones are $8 to fill them. Do the math on it. Okay, and that's only me. I'm not a senior citizen yet, but I pay co-payments that are well over that $145. Now, I can handle them, but you get a senior citizen that's on a fixed income of $900 or $1,000 a month, maybe even $1,200. And you give them $145 a month or a year added on to that. And when it comes down to it, they're not going to be able to afford it. They're going to get kicked out of their house. And then you got school taxes that are going to go up because of this new building that they're going to build over here for $100 million. And then you got county taxes that are going to go up. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? They're going to go to Sherman Hills? You're going to put them in an old folks home? You're going to raise their taxes. Come on, Tony, let's get with it. The other mayor wasn't raising taxes. And you sat right there and you told him, no, we're not raising taxes. And now you're going to raise taxes on all of us. Cut the bullshit. You know, let's keep the taxes down. You know, people can't afford this. These people that are on low income, they can't afford it. Let's keep them in their houses. I agree with the new council members. You know, Mr. Barrett, thank you for standing up. Ms. Gilbert, thank you. Mr. Brooks, thank you. The rest of you that were on council, let's stay with it. Don't pass this budget. Let's stay with the budget. Let's not pass this budget. And let's go and keep these people in their houses that could afford to stay in their houses. Let's work with it. What do you have to say about it?
Actually, I voted no to the budget because you didn't raise taxes, because you can't provide the services if you don't have the money to pay for it. You talked about the county, you talked about the school district. The city provides you police, fire, ambulance, garbage, and public works. Those county doesn't, and the school doesn't. And we're charging taxes to provide those services.
Okay, they sold off the sweeper, they sold that off. They sold off all the equipment that you want to turn around and buy new. That's all sold. Where'd the money go for the property over on East Northampton and Main Street? Where'd that money go? Where'd all this money go? Where's our money go? Where's our money go for our garbage bags? Where's that go?
Dipping fees. And it doesn't cover the tipping fees, the garbage tax.
Mr. Vernon.
Fees.
Please finish your presentation if the mayor carries the rest of you will. I don't want any back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, let's get with it. People can't afford this. You're saying, oh, it's only $12. Oh, come on, it's only $12 a month. Okay, so these senior citizens are gonna end up taking the ambulance to the hospital because they can't afford their medicine.
Thank you. Mayor,
Yeah, you say what you want to say. How about coming to the meetings instead of boycotting them?
It's called a council meeting.
Mr. Kadluboski?
Before you understand the truth. I haven't had the mayor on certain issues.
Your last name, spell it.
What is right is right. He's taking the heat for this. But Bill, you, Mr. Merritt, and the rest of the puppets that were on this council the last 12 years let this go on. And I think you and Mr. Merritt should apologize to me and to the mayor, because I stood here and said, we're out of money, we're broke. And I was laughed at by the former mayor. And nobody stood up. The only one that was Tony George. But this isn't his fault. He's the only one that stood up to Tom Layton and the corruption in the police department and the corruption in this building. It's not his fault. I fault people like Mr. Baruch and the past council. It's not his fault. Now we're stuck with it. And most likely these firefighters or police officers, somebody's going to have to get laid off if we can't raise the taxes. And I don't want the taxes raised up. You have to realize the last 12 years we have raised fees and taxes up 144%. And Mr. Burton's right. How are senior citizens going to afford it? I just got hit with my county taxes, $1,800, and the city taxes will be coming. So my proposal is, and that's the only thing I'm mad at Mr. George about, I want the mayor's salary reduced to start to $75,000. I want council salary down to $8,000 and $500 more for the chairman. Thank you. And I want no benefits. Because we're paying him now $12,000 a year for health care, and you consider yourselves part-time employees. Well, why aren't we paying health care on all the poor people out there working in the slot, hauling the garbage that are part-time workers? Why don't they get Blue Cross and Blue Shield? The time has come to start cutting back. We can't afford this no more. And this city, I'll ask Mr. Brook, maybe after my presentation he can give me this, because he's been here, so-called administrator. How much are we in debt? Are we in debt $131 million? And do we have an unfunded debt of $52 million? We can't afford this stuff no more. If we had $133 million in the bank, give everybody Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Do what you want. But we're broke. But there was only one guy that stood up to the corruption. And it was him. It was Tony George. He's the only one that stood up. And he voted against it. And if you people weren't smart enough, Bill, maybe you and Mr. Merritt, maybe you should just resign so we can get some other people in there. We're in serious trouble. And part of the trouble is that you two people, along with the other councilmen, sat here while all this stuff was happening. I came down here with facts and figures, and what happened? The mayor sat there and says, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And now all of a sudden it's the truth. So I ask you, let's seriously consider, I know you don't have to, let's cut the mayor's salary $75,000. Let's cut council salary, $8,000, $8,500 for the chairman. No Blue Cross, no Blue Shield, and Mr. Belushko, if you already got it, I want you to pay it back. On top of it, you smoke. And it bothers me, because we're gonna pay the top Blue Cross and Blue Shield for you. And like I brought up, can you afford to pay a mechanic to work 4 hours a month in your garage and pay him $13,000 a year? Mr. Belushko, could you also furnish him with $12,000 a year in health care? You can't afford it, I can't afford it, and neither could the taxpayers of the city. So I'm gonna ask you to man up and give it back. And the other council people, that if you're taking them buyouts, I don't want it given to charity. I want it given right to the general fund. Let the police use it for bullets. In the last 4 days, we've had 4 police officers killed in this country and 1 seriously wounded. I had an incident myself with a pistol in December, with a wacko. You don't know, our town, that's why our town is in such bad shape. Because all you people, the 2 remaining councilmen, while all the corruption was going on and the police department was demoralized and corrupted, you sat here. And now we don't have police cars. They'll have to borrow my tow truck maybe to go on some of the calls. I use them anyway for police calls. Maybe that's what they'll have to do. But I'm asking you, cut your salaries. And Mr. Belushko, give the benefit package back. We can't afford it. And now I would like my answer, because I still have time. How much are we exactly in debt right now? I want somebody to answer me that. And also, where did all this money go to pay all these things for council last night, or last time we were here? I want somebody to explain that to me.
Thank you. All right, I don't know if anybody has the answers that you're looking for right now.
I did not know, but I know it's roughly $90 million.
All the projects, all the bonds, $90 million is an estimate of what is total debt.
I don't know the exact.
Well, can I ask you this? And do me a favor, when you're talking, when you're
No, I'm just
addressing...
asking, I think the
Okay.
upfront liability for the pension's $53 million.
Okay, so in other words, is it like 133 million?
Well, they're 2 separate items.
Right. Oh, but in other words, Mr. Ryan, you ran an ad in the paper a few weeks ago, and I inadvertently didn't cut it out, but it said 131 million. Is that what we're in debt?
That's based on administration's figures.
So in other words, we're in debt, the city of Wilkes-Barre is in debt 131 million.
But we don't have the
We'll let the
numbers
finance
in front of us
people-
right now. We're dealing with the current operating budget right now.
What was that?
Let the finance people answer that, Bob.
Can you answer that, finance people?
An outstanding bond.
I can't hear you. Can you stand up?
Yeah. An outstanding bond loan is about $90 million. That's,
And plus the other 50 some, so it comes out to about 131 million dollars.
one from the pension liability.
Anybody got a credit card with that limit? We could
All
get
right,
this
Bob,
settled.
thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else on pending legislation? Mr. Jareau?
I'm Jareau, 47 Minor Street. I live on a fixed income. I'm a disabled veteran. This year we got word that veterans would not get an increase in clothing allowance or living allowance. So again, I don't know what to tell you. I can only tell my opponents not to stop bringing with people who are fearful. But think about this, the repercussions are going to have too. You're going to have families now have to now move with each other. Now what are you going to do? Stop increasing the ordinance when families start living with each other? Too many at the same household? That's what will happen. So what's going to do then? You're going to punish people because they can't pay this and they have to live together now? Think about that. So don't tell me again, I understand you have to make salaries, but again, it has to be a cut somewhere. It doesn't go on the backs of many veterans, homeless people out there now who can't make it. You know, there's another way you could probably help the budget too. You know, there's a program in Scranton where police officers are allowed to go to cars, auction, buy the cars, and then they fill the specs, and then the city works with them to bring that car up to spec, and it belongs to the police officer. They have ownership of the car, and it doesn't cost the city that much money. So now you have officers who have these cars, who pay on the run at auction, and all the city now does is bring this car up to specs, what the city police car should be, and these guys' ownership. It we make cost efficient that way, now you have guys who are willing to take ownership of that. I also recommend the city council people, you get out in your districts immediately and talk to those who don't have computers, who are not able to read, not able to understand this, because you have a fear factor out there. You have a fear factor. Understand, maybe to you, and I understand this, and I don't take this And I would say likely. Well, $5 for a lot of people is $5, $10. So again, the same way you ran for office and you shook hands and you stood toe-to-toe to people, you need to do that now because you have a fear factor. But understand this. When you have this increase, you're going to have a lot of the people have to cut down on other needs. What happens when you have a veteran or somebody who has to take the pain pill medication, but cheaper not going down the streets because he can't get that medication? Many people do that. They cut corners. And it's not usually decisions you like to make or they want to make, but you're going to put families in that kind of situations. Also understand when you make those that the least have to pay for this, what thing's going to happen? Their frustration and anger goes out. Those are the things also you have to think about when you have the pay increase. People become angry and people act out. And you know people will take advantage of that. Last and not least, also I read in the newspapers about the firefighters. I can only say this. When you got the firefighters, these guys don't only respond, to fires. Believe it or not, and I give classes on this, many people in the community, especially those who are newcomers to this country, will speak to firefighters before they speak to cops. You know why? Firefighters save their homes, and third world countries, their homes is everything else. So before you cut the firefighters, understand, these guys do more than just, they fight more than fires. They have a smoke house, they talk to kids. They were willing to go to a few guys who want to learn about diversity and know about Spanish 101. You need people like this, the firefighters who want to go outside and do more for the community. So again, saving money that way. You're not cutting some, you're going to put more problems. These are the guys who bring information and help the community. But again, think about this budget raise. Again, you're going to build a problem that you don't even know that is coming. You can't put poor people in a box like this. You're going to make hard decisions, and you're going to not like what you're going to have to do. I can only speak for myself. My landlady already told me, right, my rent's going up. I'm a disabled vet. Just because I look good and I dress good, don't think I have that kind of money. I don't. So please, reconsider this. You have more veterans who live in this area than most city communities. They don't have the $5, $10. They just don't have it. Think about the men and women who serve this country. They should have to come back here now and have to deal with this kind of crap. Thank you.
Mr. Troy, put your hand up.
Sam Troy, McClain. Just not to forget one other item on the agenda. I want to tie it in with the budget situation if possible. Obviously, there are a couple of things here that need to be said, I think. I'm certainly in favor of what was said previously. I know, I said this at the public hearing, that any property tax increase is going to really hurt the tax base that we have here, especially the elderly who are on fixed incomes and the people struggling to make ends meet, even putting food on the table in some cases. I know there are a lot of people who are totally oblivious to it, who won't care because they have deeper pockets, but those people are certainly the exception rather than the rule. There's a certain irony here that with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Barrett, I sympathize with Mr. George, and I know that he's between a rock and a hard place. The city is between a rock and a hard place financially. There's a large debt to be paid, and it's got to be paid soon, and we just don't have the money in the coffers. However, I don't think he went about it in a proper way. It's maybe not all his fault. Maybe the budget director, to a certain extent, is to blame. But there's a certain irony here, because I have the feeling that this budget will not be passed, because it's pretty apparent to me, I think, that all of you council members are against it, which is good, because of the reasons that were said previously. But you guys sat here for the last, 8 years or so, and every time Mayor Layton, and this was brought up to a certain extent by Mr. Kadluboski, Mayor Layton passed budgets every year, and Mayor Layton raised our taxes about 80% over the last 12 years, or maybe it was more than that. And as far as I know, you two guys voted for his budgets every time. And Mr. George always spoke against the tax increases in the budgets, in most cases, the last 4 years when he was on council. So I think the burden is incumbent. I think to a certain extent you guys are responsible for this impasse, this problem that we face here, this fiscal crisis that we face here in the city. And I think it's incumbent upon you two and the other 3 members of council and every public citizen who's interested here to find a solution here before we end up like Scranton or Nanticoke or worse, where the state has to move in and take over to a certain extent. I think that's what happened when they took over the operations of the city in both cases. I sympathize with Mayor George, and I know that you're taking a lot of flack here tonight, and I'm certainly against the tax increase. But I just want, in my time remaining, I just think, I want to point out just one suggestion, which I hope some people will take to heart, some people on council or yours or somebody in the administration, that if possible, we could have an ad hoc committee. Ad hoc means for this, to a certain objective, to a budget committee, an ad hoc budget committee made up of council members and public citizens. I'm sure you'll have a lot of volunteers from here, and the mayor and the budget director to sit down over the next few days and to come up with specific suggestions to cut expenses and to raise revenue without raising taxes. I don't understand. That doesn't seem to be, whether it's the school district, I've spoken out at meetings there, or the county, nobody seems to want to do that. I mean, I made specific suggestions the other day, in terms of cutting the budget. Maybe Mr. George has an answer here. I mentioned, for instance, that the Department of Health, and I said, the Department of Health, for instance, its budget went up from $981,000 in 2015 to $1,269,000 in 2016. And you can't tell me all that money is getting reimbursed by the state. Can't we do a closer a closer analysis, for instance? This is just an example now. My point is there are no sacred cows when it comes to cutting the budget, when it comes to preventing a tax increase. I think that this committee, if somehow we could get it together, and it's done in other cities, I know that, people who can get together and go over line by line how we can cut revenues and raise revenues and cut expenses. Let me just mention quickly a couple other specifics. Maybe Mayor George or somebody can comment on this. The business privilege tax, there are 3 business taxes, mercantile tax and 2 others. Why can't we raise those 0.5% or 0.75%? Is the business community going to make that much of a protest? I mean, can't they compensate for this projected revenue coming in from an increased property tax, which, as I said and the previous speakers mentioned, is going to overburden the people of this city? I urge council and I urge the mayor to try to consider to form a committee, or at least to get together, to put heads together and go over the specific items in here in terms of cutting expenses and increasing revenue without going, and can I have 1 more second, 10 more seconds? 10 seconds. 10 seconds, I forgot to mention. There's an item on the agenda to hire Maureen Collins as Assistant City Attorney for the City of Wilkes-Barre. I have no objection to her personally, but I think the position could be eliminated. Let's start to be frugal right now. 1 city attorney is enough. Let's see if we can hire, somebody who is a non-lawyer, a paralegal could maybe do the trick and save money there. Thank you.
So I'll address the last part about the solicitor. What I did when I came in office. What I did when I came in office is I eliminated the deputy administrator, and I put Tim Henry in that spot at $8,000 less, and he's doing both jobs. So right now we need an assistant solicitor because he's tied up doing the deputy administrator's job. And that was a savings of $85,000 right off the bat. Actually, it was 92 because he took a $7,000 cut from what she was making. And Mr. Romanelli mentioned something about fees later. Greg and I were working on this week, trying to see what fees we can charge the nonprofits, and we're going to have Mr. Henry check on if there are problems that we have to make sure they're legal. And the ad hoc committee is not a bad idea, but I only have 3 days to do a budget. So,
For next, the paralegal wouldn't work.
Thank you. Debbie McClain, we have you listed as.
Hi. This is my first time in front of council, and I'm here because I'm very passionate about this issue.
Before you begin, would you just put your name for the record and the microphone?
Debbie McClain, going Allen Street, Wilkes-Barre. My family has been in Wilkes-Barre forever. I'm not against you in any way, shape, or form. You inherited one heck of a mess, and I have nothing but compassion for what you're going through right now. I'm not in favor of a tax hike in any way, shape, or form. I have a proactive suggestion for all of you. I had a wonderful conversation, quite frankly, earlier today with a lovely man who happens to be the chief of the Scranton Police Department. I don't know if any of you know him. His name is Chief Carl Graziano. Great guy. Last year, the city of Scranton instituted a quality of life ordinance. And Chief Graziano was kind enough to send me today a copy of the ticket, as well as the copy of an ordinance itself. Tim, I want you to look at this. You don't have to create anything from scratch. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's working in Scranton. It's a revenue generator, plus a lot of the scumbag properties in Scranton are being cleaned up by this proactive ordinance. I want you to all take a look at it and pay attention to it because this could work in Wilkes-Barre. I am absolutely not in favor of the tax hike. You're going to absolutely destroy this city, and the quality neighbors in those neighborhoods that are still left are going to be forced out. They're just not going to be able to handle an inundation of Wilkes-Barre tax, school district tax. The list goes on and on and on. It is just not fair. And what you're replacing these wonderful people with, the people who are coming into the city, I get phone calls each and every day. Trust me, it is not the way to go. Wise up to everybody. Thank you.
Anyone else on pending legislation report?
Good evening, Matthew Ford, Oak Street. I'd first like to say, in response to what I said on Tuesday, I gave the mayor the last word out of the respect for this not going back and forth. But as far as that fire inspection vehicle, Mr. George, no, I would say that if that vehicle is so dilapidated that it can't get the fire inspector to the fire, which they don't have to rush there, then you shouldn't be driving it to official meetings, meeting public officials. It's embarrassing for the city, and yes, I would say that the fire department could drive a rundown vehicle for their fire inspector. I also would like to say, sir, that I think it's quite insulting to the people of Wilkes-Barre when you say, oh, well, I only had 3 days to do a budget. But no, you didn't, sir. This budget got passed in October, I believe, and you were already the Democratic nominee, and I'm pretty sure Democrats been elected like the last 50 years in the city, so I don't think there was much doubt that you were going to win the general election as well. So you should have been working on this budget, even regardless of whether you're going to win or not, since October. So when you say 3 days, it's insulting to the people of Wilkes-Barre. And when you talk about, sir, I have the floor, sir. I have the floor, sir.
I didn't say 3 days.
Mr. Chairman, can I please have the floor back, please? That topic, Mr. Suchoski has been in here talking about for the better part of a year. You should have been having those conversations from day one. You've been mayor for a month now. You could have had those conversations with the nonprofits already, and you should be reporting to the public what their response is. Likewise, I brought a way to the council that we could raise $500,000 per year in revenue, and that would have been by instituting a tax on plastic bags. I would like to know what your investigation was into that legally, and if there was legal opinion that was given by legal counsel, I would like to see the results of that study. Furthermore, sir, I have the floor.
Bill, if the mayor interrupts one more time, I want it thrown out like you do me.
Furthermore, we just saw the city restructure financial debt twice in the past year. Now, we have the biggest increase in the budget is $5 million of debt services that's going up. Most of that, I believe, is accounted for in the Johnson Controls project, which is going to save us money over time. So theoretically, with our great credit rating that the previous mayor did so well at achieving, and please God don't ruin, we could refinance that debt, and you said you're $2 million short. Now, if we get $500 from the nonprofits and $500 from the tax on the plastic bags, and you offer write off $1 million in another debt down the line, you balance the budget. And you've had 6 months to figure this out, sir, and you damn well should have by now. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I talked to both Father Ryan and President Leahy way before I came in office. It was after November, and they both told me...
Tony, stand up, please.
They told me how much financial binds they're in. So I doubt they're going to give us any more money, and they don't have to. And secondly, I said, I don't have 3 days. I worked on this budget since I got in office, even before I got in office. And I said, while I was council, I voted against the budget because it wasn't realistic. And I made no qualms about that, and I've been working on it. So I don't know where you're getting your information from. I think it's because some people are upset that they lost, and you're with them. Thank you.
May I use the remainder of my time to respond, sir?
1 minute.
Well, Mr. George, no, you did say you had 3 days to do the budget, and sir, none of these specific
No, I said
issues,
3 days from today.
none of these specific issues that you have brought up with this budget were addressed until weeks ago. The public could have been notified. You had plenty of time to prepare this, and there should have been more notice of this budget. You had plenty of time to prepare, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
Anyone
not
else
just 5 weeks, and I announced this 2 weeks ago.
anyone else on pending legislation?
Mine is actually on the budget, it wasn't.
Sure.
Greg Frigas, Mill Street. I want some clarification on some comments that were made in the citizen's voice on February 6th. I'm just going to read this verbatim from the paper. Mayor Tony George believes his predecessor set him up for failure with the 2016 budget he inherited. George, who was in the process of amending the $51.5 million budget crafted by former Mayor Tom Layton, said city employees told him they were instructed to balance the budget without creating the need for a tax increase. He claims the order resulted in unrealistic revenue projections. I'd like some clarification on that, and I'd like to know which department heads did this.
You have anything else, Greg?
That's it.
Anyone care to respond?
I can respond. Every mayor has their own agenda.
Stand up, please.
Sorry, Bob.
Thank you.
Every mayor has their own agenda. If you look through the agenda that was passed, or the budget that was passed by City Council, there are certain expense lines that the former mayor didn't see important. For example, like the police vehicles. So that was at a zero line. Another thing in there, back in September when we were dealing with Navion Collection Agency for delinquent magistrate fees, we were very confident we were going to move forward at a very fast pace. However, that was out of our hands. Just a conversation with them yesterday confirming where we are with that process. They still didn't want to give us a number of what they predicted we would bring back. So, I mean, that was another $250,000 line that we kept out of our budget. So, and that, overall, that is why my statement is that I think it's a flawed system where you have an outgoing mayor passing a budget for an incoming mayor.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I read your comments basically echoing that in the article. When Navient was contracted for the city, and I put in a right to know request today for this, what was their projection for revenues that they provided with the city? In other words, what percentage did they say they were going to be able to collect from whatever was delinquent and was owed?
Navion is not a third-party collection agency for delinquent magistrate fines for the city of Wilkes-Barre. They are doing a trial with the local magistrates. So the money goes to the county and then it gets distributed over to the city. And in the last article that was written, there are issues with the way the system is working and trying to work those out.
So there were no department heads instructed to concoct the bogus budget for this year?
It was a matter of...
Mayor Layton did not instruct you to make a bogus budget for this year?
Let him answer.
When it all comes down to it, it is a mayor's budget. He sets forth the agenda for the employees, and that was the mission, not to do a tax increase.
And we're still at 10 firefighters possibly being laid off, according to the article I read in the paper today? Or is that situation still fluid?
I think we have to look and see how revenues come in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on pending legislation?
My name's David Ashforth. I'm from South Wilkes-Barre. I'm not sure if I was supposed to sign up first or not, but a real quick, simple solution is we have multiple abandoned homes in this city. I live in South Wilkes-Barre. I can count 5 of them within a city block of my residence. I understand that the city has some kind of ordinance that if somebody buys these homes that they have to have a certified contractor come in and spend anywhere from $75,000 up to $100,000 to fix this house up. Why would you put a burden on somebody like that when you can put this property back on the tax roll? There's more finances for the city. How many abandoned homes are in this city? And in regards to the police, I had an incident last night where I called 911. It took 35 minutes for an officer in a cruiser to come by and check out the situation I called about. Which is utterly ridiculous. It's crazy. And if you live on a fixed income, like many people do, like other people have said here, how can you possibly raise taxes? I understand, Mayor George, you inherited a very tough situation. Okay? There should have been multiple public tax increases throughout Mayor Lighton's administration. You know? Then you wouldn't be in the situation where you're at right now, when you're so many millions of dollars in the hole. You know, my main objective is you've got many abandoned homes. My landlord wants to buy them. He's quite capable of fixing these homes. Him and his son are basically certified contractors. They just don't have a license. They didn't go to school and spend $400,000. Maybe that's a little bit too much. But if you're quite capable of running electric and running plumbing, what are the code inspectors for? Are they there to sit on their butts and put their feet up on their desk? Or are they supposed to go out and check this property that people fix up? I think the code inspectors are supposed to be doing that. And these properties could be sold and put back on the tax roll. And you'd have how many thousands of dollars, maybe millions coming in. Right now, you're losing all that money because you're not getting that tax. Who owns the properties? You know, should they be sold at sheriff's sale? Does the city own them? Probably the city does own them. Is the city paying the taxes on them? I'd probably say no. Maybe the city should be paying the taxes on them. Then I'm sure the city would change their ordinance as far as, you know, allowing landlords to be able to buy these properties. And I understand the situation of out-of-state landlords very much, with drugs and everything else that come in. So keep it to local landlords. Don't allow out-of-state landlords to buy properties. You know, it's utterly ridiculous that you want to increase these taxes. You know, and then we also got a $100 million school that someone was just saying a half hour ago. You know what, that $100 million school is probably going to be at least $125 million. I lived just 45 miles north of Philadelphia about 6 years ago, and we built new schools down there. And it started out at about $95 million. By the time that project was finished, it was up to $135 million. And as far as probably building just one school, it ain't gonna work. You probably need at least two. Come on.
Stick to pending legislation. I know we're moving on to.
Well, I'm talking in regards to, you know, money coming into the city. You know?
Were you finished? I wanted to address something you just brought up. I don't know if you were finished with your presentation.
I'm finished.
You talked about the vacant properties. We realize they are a problem for the city, and we realize they are, but they're not, 99% of them are not owned by us. They're owned by an absentee person.
Yes,
Last year we started,
landlords.
we have a vacant property ordinance, and last year we started doing absentees that have vacant properties that are leaving them standing. They're required to register them with us, pay a fee in the hopes that they either fix them, sell them, or
I
tear
did
them
hear
down.
about that. I think it was a
So we have to continue
$250
doing
fee.
that. We have to keep the pressure, and you're so right, we have to keep the pressure on these people that own these places that are blighted properties in our neighborhood.
$250
And that also
a year.
generates revenue for the city as well, but more importantly, as you just said, it gets them back into properties that are an asset are not a detriment to the neighborhood. So-
$250 a year is not gonna bring much money into the
No,
city.
but if you keep after these people to do this, and it increases, we would hope that it would have some results, rather than neglecting them. But you're right, we totally agree with you on that. Anyone else on that, Mayor? No? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Did we miss anybody on pending legislation?
One more gentleman, Bill.
There.
Gentleman.
My name's Mike Steinberg. I live on Jefferson Lane, and I've never addressed council before. I'm a little nervous, so please forgive me. The median income in Wilkes-Barre is somewhere, I guess, in the mid-30,000s. $30,000, 32, 35, depending on your source, the number changes. And I'm wondering what kind of sacrifice the city employees are making. It's always asked the taxpayers to make sacrifices. I'm just wondering, those who are making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, instead of increases, maybe it's time for them to start sacrificing a little as well. I don't know if all of them live in the city or not, and it's not my job to find out. But I think sacrifice needs to go all the way around it. You just can't keep going to the pockets of the property tax owners from every direction. You can't keep doing it. Not when not when the average age in this city is as old as it is. There were other things I wanted to talk about, now I can't remember. So I guess what I'm asking is, what kind of sacrifice I mean, these guys over here in the suits, how much are they making a year? What kind of sacrifices are they making? How about benefits? Do the city employees pay anything out of their pocket for benefits? Why not, if they're not? Or why not pay more? You just can't keep digging into the property tax owners. You just can't do it. There's too many people on fixed incomes here. There's too many people below median income. I mean, median income by definition means half or below. And I saw or heard you picking on the school before, so I have a suggestion for you. Instead of going to them and trying to ask them for more money, Kings and Wilkes all over this country have graduates who are extremely, extremely successful. They have to be expanding businesses somewhere. Why can't we go to the alumni societies of these schools and ask them for a list and go to their alumni and say, look, you're expanding your business. And the alumni societies, they're always digging into their alumni's pockets. They know who's successful and who's not. Why not go to these people and say, look, Wilkes-Barre was good to you. You got an education. You're very successful now in your career. Wilkes-Barre needs your help now. How about expanding your accounting office here? How about expanding your data processing center here? Whatever it is they're doing. And that's it.
We're in the process now, we have 3 new contracts in this year. We're gonna.
You know what? With all due respect, I've been hearing about unions all my life. And I'm sick to death. Unions are breaking the back of every community in this country. They are. It's a fact. They get more than the average wage. They're not paying for their own benefits. Look at the school board or the school district. They can't educate. The SATs, the paper last week said their SAT records or scores were the lowest in the area. Every time there's an article in the newspaper about test results, Wilkes-Barre, if they're not in the bottom, they're near the bottom. Yet, because of their union, you can't touch teachers. Their benefits are through the roof. With all due respect, sir, I know you're tied to contracts, and I get it. But it's time that unions stop running the place, and the citizens did. This is citizen government, or was at one time, maybe about 1776.
I made some changes in the union. I have 10 grievances.
What's happened now is taxes have become legalized plunder. They have.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm trying. I said we're negotiating.
Yeah, everybody's always negotiating, and we all get brokered.
Anyone else on pending legislation?
Taxation without representation.
Right.
Okay, now the meeting is moving to the formal business at hand. First of all, there is one explanation regarding the resolutions. The last resolution that's listed on the consent agenda, I believe it's the last one, is the request for a grant of the right-of-way by PP&L, which was discussed at the work session on Tuesday. I noticed at the work session Tuesday that the original right-of-way request and accompanying map indicated the request was for city property located on South Main Street. That's incorrect. It is actually North Main Street. I talked to PP&L. They agreed. They made the appropriate changes. And what you have before you tonight is the corrected request. That's just a minor point, but it is a very important point as to where the location is. Okay?
Questions on the resolutions?
Okay, so first order of business is consent agenda resolutions. Motion, second, and vote.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Belusko.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Ms. Gilbert.
Yes.
Mr. Merritt.
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the motion to adopt the mayor's amended 2016 general fund budget as amended. Motion second and vote.
Jim, I make a motion because it has, like Jim said, it has to be, somebody's got to make a motion and somebody else needs to second it so we can bring it to a vote. We can't just leave it hang out in limbo. So I do make that motion to accept it.
Prior to that, let me ask, is there any further discussion from council on this particular? Let's go. Anything further on this prior to going to vote?
No, sir.
Mr. Brooks?
I have nothing further.
Ms. Gilbert?
No.
Mr. Merritt, anything? I have a, the conversation that came out of everyone tonight brought up a lot of excellent ideas, a lot of thoughts, and I'm really happy that everybody is looking at this and looking at the big picture. City of Wilkes-Barre, and I believe in the calls that I've gotten, and I suspect you've got the same calls, has reached a little bit of a saturation point with taxes. We have we're not happy with our earned income tax being at 3%, and our property taxes increasing on top of that creates a significant hardship for a lot of people. And we don't want these vacant properties. We want people to move in, and I believe that that's a detriment to people that may want to move into the city of Wilkes-Barre with facing a 3% earned income tax and an increase in property tax. A couple things have happened here, Mayor. I know that you were trying to realign your administration, but we have seen multiple unbudgeted positions being created as well. I hope that we can get a handle on what we're doing with the budget. I'm not at all happy with that. I think a lot of that is combined to lead us to where we are this evening and what we're facing as council. I know that there are some challenges, and I know regardless of what happens, we would all work with you on any revenue issues or any ideas that you may have to move forward with the challenges that we do face. However, from my perspective, I think that we've reached the point that we do have to draw a line here, and we have to work with the budget that we have and try to look at alternative revenue sources and work with you on doing just that. Jim, you can go ahead and unless somebody else has something on that.
Mr. Merritt made the motion, and we need a second and then a vote.
I'll second the motion, bring this for a vote.
Okay. Mr. Belusko.
No.
Mr. Brooks.
No.
Ms. Gilbert.
No.
Mr. Merritt.
No.
And Mr. Barrett.
No. Council presentation. We have one more item. We have another
Yeah,
one?
one more item.
Sorry.
Is the we have one ordinance, and that is the corresponding ordinance to the budget increase, proposed budget increase, and that's an ordinance amending Article 8, Section 28-177, the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances relative to the millage rate for real property taxes. Motion second and vote to accept that or not.
I think it's another one that we need a motion to bring this up for a vote. Mr. Merritt? I'll second it.
Okay, Mike Merritt, a motion, and Mr. Barrett, second. Vote, Mr. Belusko,
No.
Mr. Brooks,
No.
Ms. Gilbert,
No.
Mr. Merritt,
No.
and Mr. Barrett. Motion fails.
Can I just interject 1 second?
Certainly.
I asked council now, before April, when that fireman's grant comes up, to give me ideas on how we could save, increase revenue. I know Beth talked about going to Kings and Wilkes. She's free to, she has my authority to go talk to President Leahy and Father Ryan, because I spoke to him already, and she can see what she can get, you know, how much more she can get, or you can give me some revenue ideas or places I can cut expenses. Because come April 15th, I'm afraid we're on the edge now of just paying our bills. And we just have to send taxes out now, and I don't know when they're gonna come in. So I'm just hoping we can make payroll come April and May. So I just, you know, ask for your ideas or your input in giving us some ideas on how to increase revenue and cut expenses.
And if I may, Mayor, I think you're so right with that, and we do need to do that, we do need to work together. However, as I just said, the 3 unbudgeted full-time positions with benefits
But there, I eliminated.
Bill, can you ask him to stand up?
is up to
I eliminated 4 and put 3 in, and 2 of them that I eliminated were over 85,000, and not one was over 42 or 45,000.
These are the types of things that we need to be involved in, and we need to work together with to ensure that we're not creating a problem for ourselves.
Well, I believe when Mayor Layton came in, he got rid of 17 people and 9 administrators and had a whole, you know, and nothing was said when that.
And Mayor Lake is not here now.
Right,
so
I
we need to
know.
work together.
And he put people in the union a week before he left office that were non-union.
Well, again, we need to work together from this
Okay.
point out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Belusko, anything with this? We're going to go by alphabetical order tonight.
I'd like a question for Greg. Has there been success in speeding on Old River Road? I have not seen a police officer on that.
The message was sent over to the police. I did not receive a response from them as the outcome. I will check with the chief tomorrow.
Thank you. The other thing I'd like to publicly thank Butch for an issue I needed yesterday, and he immediately got it done. Within an hour, I had an answer, and before I knew it, problem was solved. Resident was happy, taxpayer was happy, I was happy. Thank you, Butch.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks? Anything? That's not usually going in that order.
It was a television show a long time ago.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm looking at her.
I just want to thank the public for coming tonight, and that just reinforces this citizen democracy that we have here in Wilkes-Barre. I want to thank Mr. Romanelli for bringing this idea about per building fees, and like to see what cities are doing that across the country, and can we do that. And thank Mrs. McClain who brought this quality of life ordinance from Scranton that is very comprehensive. Hopefully we will definitely look at that. And the other gentleman mentioned the ideas about seizing police cars from drug raids to use here. Folks, we are in a terrible, terrible position. And it's not just Wilkes-Barre. Third-class cities in America are absolutely shackled by the way Harrisburg operates. We operate in a system that created by William Penn, and it doesn't work anymore. And this is happening all over the place. And we definitely need to engage our state legislators and state senators. We do see them at cocktail parties, and we don't need to have those cocktail conversations. You're absolutely right.
Pays for the parties.
Chamber of Commerce guys, whatever. There needs to have serious reform in the state of Pennsylvania to give us the tools to try to go after these issues. And it starts with us engaging everybody.
and I thank you for being here. On district matters, this morning I had a very eye-opening experience by going to a house that I swear I was walking into Appalachia, which I told you, 4951 Nicholson Street. The neighbor is issuing, would love to have a stop work, and I will certainly go with some of the people up there to see it. It's just absolutely incredible that people could live this way and work on a house that way. Nothing else, thank you.
Thank you. I'll get this right. Ms. Gilbert. That takes a while.
I just wanted to make a couple comments. One regarding a clarification of a quote that was made in the newspaper regarding Wilkes and Kings. I just kind of wanted to elaborate on that because it was only a snippet of what I said. Obviously, I think that Wilkes and Kings add a tremendous aesthetic value to Wilkes-Barre. However, at the end of the day, we need money. And I would be more than willing to participate in the negotiations if you so wish. But at the end of the day, it's not council's job to find ways to bring in revenue. We vote on your ways to bring in revenue, and I think that, you know, yes, we do need to work together, but we also need to, I'm trying to think how to word this. We need to be a little more, you know, collaborative, but we need a strong leader as well. And I think that you are doing the best that you can. And that's just my comments on that for right now. Also, you know, regarding district business, one issue that I found is, I heard a couple of comments about this, are the train tracks on Penn Ave in East Northampton. There's been a big issue with people almost getting hit by trains down there. I don't know if that would be more so a traffic committee issue, or if we can do something about that, because I know even myself, the trains come barreling through there. And I think that it can lead to a huge mess if we don't get that straightened out down there. Is some sort of signage or anything like that. So that's all.
On that issue there, I've heard similar concerns from Essex County Railroad there that runs all the way down to the city. And there's no gates or lights or anything there. And I think that they're supposed to stop and have a flag person.
Tim was told this.
Yes.
Contact.
And I did.
Okay, great, yeah, super. All right, Mr. Mayor.
The only thing I want to say is, Mayor George, you know, council will work with you on creating new ideas to generate revenue. And we'll turn up the heat and do it as best as we can and get it to you as fast as we can. I think that the people spoke that enough is enough. I've had Mr. Troy tell me that I voted for every tax increase since I was in office, and that's not true. If you want to go and check the records, I did not. But, you know, we're in this situation. I mean, it could be worse. There are municipalities out there that don't have a good rating to go ahead and refinance something if we need to do that in order not to lay people off. Okay, so we will work with you. We're in this together. Council, the administration, and everyone in this room who lives in Wilkes-Barre. So we'll get through it one way or another. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
The only thing I have additional is just thank you everyone for coming out. Whenever there's a topic like this on the agenda, we always get a pretty full house. We would encourage all of you to come back every 2 weeks and so that we can bring forth your ideas, because collectively we can move forward. But again, thank you, and I don't have anything additional.
Phil, can we get to talking and we fill papers out?
We're moving into that right now.
Okay, thank you.
We didn't forget about it. Okay, Angel Jareau.
47 Minor Street. I just want to bring up some ideas that may raise revenue too. Again, you know, we have a lot of homes. I think we only have 3 inspectors, 2 inspectors go. If we're having all these community organizations that are now forming, why don't we have volunteers? You have many people in these communities now willing to work and do volunteer work for the city. Why not train people to go out and be home inspectors? That way you have more eyes in the street. You make people more responsible for their neighborhoods, and people are willing to do this because they want to take ownership of their neighborhoods. So again, that's one way to save money. Number 2, also, Judge Scranton has what's called the Civilian Police Academy, where they have for 6-7 weeks, the police works with civilians, And they're able then to do things such as, on parades, you don't have police officers, you have put in the streets, you save that money, and you have civilians who will work like road guards. Again, Scranton does it, and many other cities. That's another way to save money. Now you have less officers, just on parades, but it can be elsewhere as much needed. Again, but I think the way to raise revenue is to bring more people involved. Look, you have universities, some of the best students too. Instead of getting a lawyer making $60,000, $70,000, get a Wilkes University law student who's hungry, pay him that, pay his tuition maybe less than that, again, less inside the box. If we have so many nonprofits, and these schools make money, you know, if they tell you not making money, then, you know, my school books, it must be a joke on me. But again, make the schools part of the system. If they have young people graduating of the best of their class, see if we can have them work with the city and work something out. That they can work side by side with you and take some of the jobs you may have to cut, but have someone who's willing to come in for less money that they have to pay for tuition. Again, it involves the community, the schools that are already not paying any taxes and getting away with a great deal. So make them, if they're not willing to come to the table with money, ask for the resources. Ask them what they can do for the city that's going to cost us less money so they can continue paying no taxes and being a burden. Thank you. Oh, gracias. Oh, thank you.
Suchoski.
John Suchoski, Almond Lane. First thing, the train, the people don't hop out for the train, that just goes straight through. I've seen that before. I'm gonna go to Martin Luther King Day, and I talked to the mayor this week, and he said that if the unions, we could get the unions on board, but I'd like to see it, make it happen any way possible that we could have it happen. I'd like the council, I don't know if you guys would like to, you know, just express that you guys really want to make this happen no matter what we've got to do. If you have to maybe, I don't think it'd be a tax increase like you're trying with that, but I really think you guys should try to make it happen. We need to have Martin Luther King Day. This hall closed on that day. The only thing that needs to be open for the ceremony. Now, with blighted properties, could you guys find them and, like, I was running this week and running down Hazel Street, and there was a house that had like it was like sewage leaking out. I ran it up Sunday morning. By Monday, city had people there. I didn't call it in. I was going to, but like that house, I know that house and the house right next to it on Hazel Street have been. They've both probably been empty since the White House has been, you know, closed. That's probably like 10, 12 years or something. I don't know. But those properties have been there forever. They're just sitting there. Why can't you guys, like, that's something that definitely needs to be fined and, you know, taken care of, because these people aren't taking care of properties and they're everywhere. Like, that one's an extreme situation, but if these people are going to be able to allowed to own these properties, you guys need to be able to find them, because it seems like it's way out of control. I don't know if there's a list, if there's any kind of list, or is there? Do you have a blighted property list? Like, I don't know, could you guys maybe pass an ordinance, another way to enforce this? Because right now, it's not being properly enforced, and, you know, there's tons of properties all over the place. They're just terrible. Like, the city loses money on that because they're not getting the money from that specific property. They're not getting any taxes from that, or maybe they are. But the properties around them, their taxes, people ask for, you know, to get their taxes lowered because they have a messy property or two messy properties adjacent to their property. So why shouldn't their taxes be lower if they have to live with that? So we just really need to get on top of the blighted properties. We need, I don't know, some kind of enforcement, some kind of checks. Like, I know that the last mayor passed with the checks with the rental inspections. Maybe if you get the same company or another company to take over that too, if the city can't handle it. That's all I have. Just please take care of blight. Thank you.
We're working on, I think we're knocking down 7 properties soon as the spring, the weather breaks. But that's a double-edged sword.
Because it's still empty. You can't get them back into other people's, like, is there any kind of programs or any other cities doing anything like that where you get the properties back into people's hands? Because there's people that be willing to fix them.
Most of these properties are still got the copper and the electrical wires. It's just too expensive for anybody to buy and try to repair it.
Now, we do have an ordinance that deals with vacant properties, and if somebody owns these places, somebody actually owns these properties, they're the person that needs to be held accountable. We don't need to be in the real estate business, but we do need to speak for the current people that own. And
And may I read a quote from Dr. King before I leave? Thank you. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for the others? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Mike Steinberg, also have you here.
Mike Steinberg, Jefferson Lane. In Saturday's paper, there was an article about the budget, and I don't want to revisit that, but it talked about mercantile taxes, business privilege taxes, and recycling fees that are passed due and were turned over for collection. I'm wondering if there's a list of these businesses that could be made public, because I certainly don't want to support businesses that aren't supporting the city. If they're not paying their taxes, doing their fair share, I don't believe they deserve our support, and I think a list of both those should be made public.
They are public?
Any information we call from tax returns is protected information under law. We can't release.
So it's not public information. I understand what you're saying.
Well, what about delinquent property taxes? That stuff's made public.
Yeah, this is the information that people who collect, like our mercantile taxes and those kind of taxes. There are very stringent laws that govern what they can and can't release. And most of the stuff, almost all of the stuff they acquire in their role as, those tax collectors isn't subject to public access. We've had numerous requests over the years for stuff just like you're talking about.
Well, let me ask this. Does the city know who they are? Or is it just the tax collector? And is the city doing business with any of those?
Oh, no, yeah, we know.
Are you doing business with any of those companies?
Not that I know of. Again, I would have to look into it. But the information you're looking for is not the kind of information we can make public.
Well, it is a question that you're asking, should the city remove those businesses from an approved vendors list?
Well,
I think so.
I can ask it now, yeah.
Can we look?
I just don't think anybody should be supporting businesses who aren't supporting the community.
And I highly doubt that we are. But without looking at it further, I couldn't say definitively.
And, well, then I'll ask this question. If you put out a list of businesses that are not approved for the city, can you make that public?
Not approved for the city.
Well, like Mr. Merritt just said. He indicated that maybe that you could have a not approved vendor list. Why can't that be made public?
Not if it's information that we've gained for their tax returns.
Bill, if I'm next, I'll be right back in.
Okay, Matt Ford. 11. 11? Mr. Ford? Mr. Kettle, can you all out the door to him, please? Person ahead of you, isn't here, that's what we call it back in.
Oh, okay. Do I have to reintroduce myself?
Yes.
Kadluboski. 26 years ago, I came to a meeting here, objected to the council and the mayor getting a raise back then. And one of the things that Mayor Lee Naney said, better salaries attract better people. Sat right over there. Said, well, what happened? We're $131 million in debt. Better salaries attract better people. And here we are today. The reason I'm back up to the podium is nobody's answering. How about cutting your salaries? And why Tony's in so much trouble is the hires he just did. That's why he's having this backlash. We're going to take for his friends and his supporters, but now the rest of us are going to pay. We're going to probably be without firefighters, but his friends, and some are on double pensions, are working. That's why he's in trouble. He's in serious trouble with the public. They're outraged because he created these positions or put his friends in. And the thing I'm really upset about, we were supposed to lower the mayor's salary $75,000 and lower the council's salary. And the 3 new people, guess what? You could do it. You could force these other people to go along with it. Cut it down. We can't afford it. And I want to get an answer off Mr. Belushko, if he's going to get off the Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Because I think it's a slap in the face. Look what's happened, we're going to lose firefighters. Or police officers. Because we can't afford this stuff. And the way this, for the new council, the way this is set up, the way Mayor Namington did it, they never put it up for the city, or for the citizens to vote on. And for us to change it, we have to put it on the ballot. But every time the unions get a raise, council gets a raise, the mayor gets a raise. Tony George took a $2,000 cut. That's not what I was told. It's supposed to be $75,000 and lower the council salary. If Tony took a $75,000 salary and your salaries were lowered, people would say, be sympathetic and say, hey, they're doing it. I mean, Mr. Belushko, and I'm not that personal with you, I think you're a nice guy, probably a good mechanic. You look like a pig. You look like a hog. Taking that. You can't afford to give it in your business. I can't. But yet you're taking it. So we got to give it up. Lower your salaries, and that'll be a start. Billy, you don't need the money. I brought up how much you make a year, $200,000 a year. I don't want to keep rubbing it in, but it's true. I understand. And then Tony's on a double pension. Why don't we give up the salaries? Let's cut the salaries down. Then you could go to the citizens and say, this is what we did. But so you understand, to new council, under the Layton administration, when he first got in, he paid the PFM group $250,000 for 5 years to come in and raise our taxes and fees and everything he could raise up. And one gentleman that was here one night, I believe it's 144% in increase in everything we pay. I can't take it no more. I just got $1,800 in taxes, and now the city taxes will be coming. We're being taxed to death. We can't do it. I mean, in a way, I feel sorry for Tony, but he's the one who wanted the job. He got it. And Tom Layton, he's the one who stood here and basically called me a liar and him a liar. There's only two, I mean, citizens stood up too. He knew. And I'm sure you knew, Bill. If you didn't, you should have. And now it makes it look bad on him and his administration, but it's not his fault. Tom Layton did stick it to the citizens. Yeah, we have a good credit rating. And we do, Mike. We have a good credit rating. And who do you think paid for the credit rating? And like I brought up here years ago, him and his crew back in 2003 put the city in bankruptcy, cost us $500,000 to get rid of McClain, which wasn't a bad idea. But this has been all smoke and mirrors, just like I said. And now here we are. Maybe I know I get a little bit upset, and the reason I get upset is I'm frustrated, like everybody else in the city. I joke with my one friend. I said, why don't we take a ride by the Poplar Inn? Maybe we'll see somebody get shot. An hour later, somebody gets shot. So I actually was able to watch a video of a man being an attempted murder on video. It's like just like that TV. Firing a gun, running across Spring Street, right past the police car. That's our town today. So I'm asking you to give your salaries up, cut it down, at least give it a thought. And Mr. Belushko, I want you to give me an answer. Are you going to give up that Blue Cross and Blue Shield? I'm done. I'm finished.
We're not back and forth.
Well, I understand, but I'm asking him a question. I want an answer.
I want you to address council as a whole, not...
All right. Hello, council. Hold. Are you going to give up the Blue Cross?
No, sir. I'm not part-time. I'm not a part-time councilman. That's what you said, part-time?
Right. Well, we can't afford it, Mike. How about giving it up? We can't afford it.
Bob, you've made your point, okay?
I understand, but he's being a hog. We cannot afford it. If he's going to stay on, I'm going to call Blue Cross and Blue Shield, tell him he smokes, so we have to pay more.
Bob, one of the things that you may not, I think you do know this, and about 12 years ago, council voted to freeze their salaries 12 years ago. And you talked about the 3% raises and everything. The council has not had, it stayed frozen for the last 12 years, and I don't see it being unfrozen anytime in the near future, or anytime that I know of. And so that salary that is in place now is what it was 12 years ago. It stayed there, despite anybody else getting raises, whether it was the mayor, whether it was any unions. There has been no increase in council salaries in 12 years. And I'm sure no one here is going to make a motion to unfreeze that.
You sure you didn't get a raise like 2 years ago?
No.
All right. But do you understand what the perception is here?
I just wanted to make that clear. to you.
I
Maybe you weren't
respect
there
that.
with-
I respect that. But on the other hand, go to Kingston, go to Plains, go to Hanover.
Okay.
You know,
Thank
we
you.
just can't afford this.
I-
But yet, yous don't want to take a step and say, hey, we'll cut it. But it's up to you new council people. Yous could do it. And my-
Okay, thank you, Bob.
I'm really
Mr. Ford,
let
we
down.
almost missed you. You stepped out there for a second.
Thank you, Matthew Ford, Oak Street. I apologize to council members of attendance here today. I had a meeting, I had a quick run over to Norm's real quick. Ran up the steps, so I'm a little out of breath, but I brought up an important issue 2 council meetings ago, and at that time, council informed me that they weren't quite certain if it was their position to investigate the matter that I brought up, but I noticed that the mayor is here in attendance today, and I'm certainly within the purview of the executive powers to carry out the task that is needed to be done. And thank you to Bob Kadluboski for pointing out that our current mayor is the only mayor, quote unquote, who has stood up to the corruption, especially in the police department. And it was brought to my attention several weeks ago by Mr. Frank Sork, who is the writer of the Wake Up Wilkes-Barre blog, and was corroborated by Mark Robbins, the author of the Wilkes-Barre Truth blog. I might have those two backwards. However, the point of the matter is they both informed myself and the general public that the new chief of police, Officer Lendacki, was their source, was leaking confidential police information to them to post online. I asked the council if it was troubling. I would ask that the council, since I'm not allowed to address the mayor directly, ask the mayor if it troubles him and if he would use his purview to investigate these matters and either 1, clear Ms. Lendacki's name, or 2, make sure she's held accountable for her actions. That is it.
Thank you. Comment?
There's no evidence that you did anything wrong.
There's 2
On
individuals.
it's hearsay.
It's not hearsay when there's 2
Anybody
people.
can say anything unless they have evidence to back it up, and there's no evidence to back it up.
May I respond, sir?
Briefly.
There's 2 individuals corroborating this.
We're in personnel area right now.
I understand, sir. There are 2 individuals who are making this accusation, which means it's no longer hearsay, sir. Secondly, there is information that was leaked that would only be available to high-level police officials. She's one of the few people who fit that mold, and there would be enough to do the investigation and find out one or the other. Regardless, the public perception is that she is the culprit, and it's a stain on the city, and it should be investigated. And again, if she did not do it, her name will be cleared, and the city's name will be cleared.
We're
Thank you.
going to stop it. Thank you. Okay, anything from council? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Hey, Bill, thanks for letting me speak.
Wait,